continuing with our video sit-downs with the candidates. We have Eugene C. Austin. It's okay to call you Gene, right?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, all right. So you're running for district court judge.
Yes.
Let's talk about you first off and tell everybody who you are and your qualifications.
Okay, well, qualifications, always hate talking about myself, but I've been an attorney for about 27 years. I actually graduated from BYU Law School. Went into the Marine Corps briefly, was in there long enough to get hurt and pick up a disability check. Then went into private practice and doing representing clients in federal court, state court, doing family law, criminal law matters, contracts. For a while, I was an attorney guardian ad litem, representing abused and neglected children in court. Eventually, I went to work at Boeing for about 13 years, doing contracts, government contracts, civilian contracts, working on negotiations and things like that, providing advice to the people at Boeing on legal contracting issues. Went back into private practice. I've been doing a lot of criminal appeals, particularly from the district court into the superior court. They're called Rawls appeals. Some people may not realize that you can actually appeal a district court and go into superior court rather than into the appellate court. A district court case can be appealed from a superior court, and then it can get a discretionary review up to the appellate court and Supreme Court. You have a much harder time getting up to the Supreme Court simply because they have more courts to go through. One of the things you find in those cases that the issues are all pretty much the same that you run into the higher courts. The stakes are maybe not as high for the person that's appealing the case, but the issues of did they read you your rights? Did they allow evidence in that they shouldn't have? And those things are all the same as in the other courts. So I've handled those cases. I've handled a number of other appellate court cases, to murder cases and drug cases up to the Court of Appeals. Fewer than the Rawls appeals, but yeah. So that's sort of what I've been doing for the last 27 years.
Okay, so why did you choose to run?
Well, that's always a hard question. I've actually tried to think about what to say to that question. You think that you can make a difference. One of the things in our court system is that the courts are there to protect the rights of individuals, and that's what our country was basically set up on. And going back to the Declaration of Independence, and it states in there that, that famous line, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's the key to the whole American system that we have, and that's not just in the federal level, but in the state level, is that the courts are there to protect the rights of the individuals and to dispense justice. And they play an important part, and you have the separation of powers that you don't want the courts making law and making policy decisions that should be done by the other branches, because that basically destroys the whole system. You don't have a system that functions in freedom when you do that. In the district court level, although it's lower court level, as I said, these issues are always the same. And that's often when the first people get involved with a case. You usually don't go immediately to robbing banks. and selling drugs. You usually go through a stage, and people get involved in the district court level. That's usually where they get involved first. Sometimes it's just maybe a DUI or trespassing or something like that. But the issues and the rights that are involved are still the same. And that's a place where if you want to make an impact on people's lives, that's a place maybe to start before it gets into the place where where they're going to have to send someone to prison. We had, I'm sure you've talked to the sheriff, and he probably mentioned some of the things that part of the whole system and the correctional system is you have to punish people sometimes. But you want people to rehabilitate. You want people to understand this is not something I want to do, and I'd like to, correct and get my life straightened out and get on a path that I'm going to be contributing to society in a proper way, and a beneficial way, not just to me but to my family and others. I want to, try to be part of that system, in that process. And it's not an easy process for any judge, because you have people that come in and, do we send this person to jail, or do we want to put him on some sort of work release EHM, or does he really need to go to jail because he's not getting on? There's some people that need to go to jail. There's other people where you'll probably make the problem worse if you put them in jail. They've got a job and a family, and put them in jail, they lose their job, their family gets kicked out, it becomes homeless. So it's not an easy decisions to make. But at the district court level, you do have a little bit more leeway, because you're not dealing with people that, well, hopefully sometimes you are, but people that really need to have the hammer brought down on them. But again, sometimes they do. If they don't learn their lesson, then I've run across people that they just continually get in trouble. They just, and so you have to do that. We have, you may be aware, there's an issue, of course, with the jail, that it's overcrowded, and you have to, take those things into consideration. But the main thing with the jail, with the district court, as I said, is the biggest priority is to protect the rights of the people, individuals, and everybody in the system. That's what they're there for. The public defender's there to protect the rights of their clients. The prosecutor's there to represent the people of the state and protect their interest. And interestingly enough, the prosecutors have a nice position to be in, because their interest is protecting the interest of the people of the state, and that includes the client of the prosecutor, the accused. And that means that their interest should be just to obtain a just decision. And if that accused person shouldn't be there, their job is to find that out and say, no, we're not going to continue with this. This person should not be here. The public defender has a little bit different problem. He has to represent that client, whether he's good, bad, whether he's Osama bin Laden or Mother Teresa. They don't get a choice. They have to represent them to the same extent. So those are some of the things I like to, I think I can contribute to and make a difference in this community.
This is a pretty crowded race. I was very surprised how many people actually filed for this race. What differentiates you from the others? Well,
unfortunately, I can't really tell you too much. I'm sure I've met all the others. Mr. Bonin, Mr. Valley. I can't recall them right off the top of my head. They've all been treated me fairly and well. I've had more dealings with Judge Still and Greer. They've all been fair people, and everybody in the race has a fair amount of experience. We all have over 20 years experience each. And so I think everyone has a bit of qualifications that they could bring to the office. And our life, life gives you different experiences and treats you different things. We're the sum of our experiences in life. and each one of us probably has different experiences. You know, the trouble of differentiating me from them is I don't know what their experiences are. Okay. But all I can say is in dealing with them, they've all been fair, decent people with me. So my experiences, which we've talked about, I think that's what differentiates me. I have a lot of experience. I have 27 years experience. I have experience with children. I've had experience working in tribal courts with Indian tribes as well. The contracts, family law, criminal law, different court systems, and those things I think are. I also have an MBA, so I've worked as I said, I worked at Boise. I have a corporate system, and that's useful because the district judge is basically running the district court and overseeing the people that work in it. So that we've got some issues there, and one of the issues that certainly the district court is constantly dealing with is just a caseload, and that can go up and down. Sometimes you get really high volumes, and other times you don't. Yet we're in the district court's in a courthouse that's quite old, and it's also a little bit smaller than what it would be if they were to build something to accommodate the what needs to go on in that courthouse. So you've got people crammed into a little area, and it's not necessarily conducive to the flow of the whole process. I've had some experience, because of my background and looking at those issues, and you can do a workflow analysis on things and you identify where you get bottlenecks and things that slow down the process. And then you address those things, and that speeds things up, but by speeding up it then stresses other areas of the things and identifies other bottlenecks. Currently right now, one of the problems is they're trying to go to a paperless system, and they have some new forms, but it's really a struggle. They don't have that quite worked out where they can use them properly. They're not really accessible to the attorneys, so they have to print them out, but they only have one printer that the court is using. So you can't. The attorneys have a hard time getting the work done there. Related to that, it's really hard to find a place to meet with your clients. So you're out talking with them out in the hallway, which raises problems for the attorneys because there's a confidentiality issue there. You're out talking to someone out in the middle of the hallway where everybody's walking by. It's hard to talk to them about their case because it needs to be private. But there's no place to really meet with them and have that private and then go over these forms, because you have to go over forms with the client if you're going to change a plea, and go over all the issues and all the rights that they might be giving up when they change their plea to from not guilty to guilty. They're waiving a lot of rights, and they need to go over those. But there's no real good way to do it. And those are some of the things that you have to address and know how to address them. And I do that because I've done that in other areas.
So if you're elected, what would be your top priority?
Well, the top priority, as I said, is always ensuring that justice is done and that the rights of the people before you are protected. That's the purpose of the court. So that's always got to be the top priority. Then the question is, how do you get that done when you're faced with other issues? Overflow, too much caseload, no place for the clients to visit with their attorneys when they need to. One thing that I was thinking about is they put in some TVs in the courtroom, but they're not necessarily taking full advantage of that, like having TV arraignments with maybe down at the jail, rather than they bring all their inmates up, and then they sit down. You have to put them in their in handcuffs and bring them up, and they sit down, then they go through, and then they take them out, and then the court goes back to some of the other people that are there. Then they have to stop everything when they bring the next group up. that might be some way where you could improve the flow for handling the initial hearings just on a TV at the jail, so they just bring them to the jail and you can do it at a set time. Of course, even the jail has a problem there because they're having a problem with the capacity and finding places where they could do that. But that would be something to look into, and I think you have to work with the judge. So another issue that's related to this workflow problem is the public defenders aren't getting basically lists and notices of who's new in the jail. So when they come up to hearing, they're meeting these people for the first time in court, and that obviously slows things down. I've understand from talking to public defenders that the prosecutors are not always there in the initial hearings, and that slows things down because they can't resolve things that could. They might have been able to get a plea right then, but the prosecutor's not there, so they have to enter a not guilty plea and then set up another hearing and bring them back. Now, to be fair to the prosecutors, they've got a huge workload too, because they don't have just the ones that are appointed to the public defender. They have the ones that don't have an attorney, the ones that have an attorney, and they're having to deal with all of that. So they've got a workload problem too. And it's all these things come together, and when you don't get them to mesh, they just create more problems. So that would be something that needs to be worked on. I think you'd want to sit down with the the first thing you'd probably want to do is sit down with the people in the court, work with you, find out what things are causing them stress, and address those. Get some way to talk to the prosecutors and the public defenders and the other attorneys and see what issues they're facing beyond the ones that I've seen and mentioned, and then start addressing those. We've not just the district court, but the Superior Court. We've actually have a law library. It's basically a computer, but we don't have room, so it's in a closet downstairs. They took the door off the closet. It's under the stairs and put the computer in there so people can go in there and access the materials for the law library. They have access for the jail, so the inmates can do it. But it's in a closet. And those. It's not an ideal situation, but it's better than what we had before. They're making improvements on it, and that's something that we'd probably want to get involved with and work on too.
We could spend a lot of time talking about everything that was on my list.
Oh,
but the last thing I want to ask you is to briefly tell everybody why you were the best for this seat.
Well, as I said, life, you're the sum total of your life experiences and what you learn from them. I've had a broad range of experiences, not just in the legal field, but outside of the legal field. I've worked in the district court, been court appointed on cases. I've worked in all other courts, federal courts, other state courts and appellate courts. I've seen what some of the problems that you come up with in the district court and issues, and what some of the things that are recurring issues. Having had those experiences, I think I can work with people. I know them. They've all been, and I should say this. They have problems, but everyone I've worked with in the court has been over there in the district court have been very good at what they do, and very courteous, and made an effort to try to do a good job. But you look at just how you get in there to see them. If you've been over the courtroom, they have the entry is probably about the size, a little bit bigger than this desk, and it's not flow people in and out and deal with it. It's got to be hard, and they get a lot of pressure put on them to handle the people that come in, and taking the payments, looking up court cases and finding things. So they do a great job. And I don't want to say that they don't, because I've never had any bad experiences with them. But I think my experiences as an attorney for 27 years, my experiences in different court systems, my corporate background, MBA and things can all be a benefit to the whole district court system. And we want to make the district court system better than it is. I mean, it's not just a matter of just saying maintain the level, and they're doing a good job maintaining the level, but you want to make it better. I'll always find ways to make it better and make it easier, because if you can make it easier on the employees, that makes it better for the people that are coming through the court, because the employees are going to be doing a better job, having more time to work with those people. And I think I can do that. And one other thing, and get back to of course, the main thing that the court's there to do is, as I said, is dispense justice in a fair, competent, and correct manner, and protect the rights of the individuals. And that's the main thing that the court's there to do. And I think that having done all this in my past and history, that I can recognize those things and ensure that that's done properly.
Thank you for taking some time and talking to us.
Well, thank you.